All right, good morning, everybody. What's going on? Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I'm here to do a market update. And today's discussion is more so going to be about my high time frame overview on the market, as well as some Elliott Wave count discussions. So I hope you all enjoyed today's session because I've been thinking about a lot of exactly, where we are in context of the market. Even this weekend, I did a quick thread on what I believe the market is going through right now and how I perceive things are going to pan out over the next couple of weeks. So, and I did this yesterday in the thread, or 2 days ago rather. Make sure y'all check out this thread if you want an overview of my thoughts on the market and how I'm going to go about sort of exercising my trading. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started. Can everybody hear me in the chat? Are we good? Y'all can see my screen. No sound issues. We're good. Okay, perfect. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Bitcoin on a high time frame chart. I decided to take on the 3-day chart right here, just because I think it best represents contextually, where we are in the market. I like this very nice ascending trend line that we're working on and dealing with right now. We're still hanging on by a thread right here. We need to bounce away from this trend line. And I personally believe that there's a higher probability that we move away from this trend line. How high we move away is the question. There is a possibility that we may go to about 46,000, maybe as high as 51, 52K. Those are the two important levels that I'm going to be watching. But I want to dive into Elliott Wave counts to give y'all an understanding of how I believe the market is playing out in different scenarios. So first, let's get to my thought process here, which is in its simplest form, right? In its simplest form, here's where I believe we're in a bullish count, okay? The bullish count, in my opinion, is quite simple. We are in a huge bull count starting from the end of December 2018 when we bottomed. This was the first big wave. Second wave pulled back into the March 2020 COVID crash. The third wave topped at 65,000 here in April 2021. And maybe we've bottomed out for the fourth wave right here, June 2021. And now we're in the midst of another final fifth wave. Remember, Elliott waves are waves within waves, meaning this circular white count that you see right here, right, is a larger count. And this line right here that you see with the count is a count within this larger wave between the 4 and the 5. Okay, so let me remove this and show you all exactly what I mean. So this 5 wave right here that we're going through right now, which is, this is a 1, this is a 2, 3, 4, and 5. You generally will have a fifth wave from a smaller degree end with a large wave of a higher degree. They end at basically the same point. So the point is here that I believe that this is one of the counts that we may be going through. Okay. Now, the tricky part about all this is if this is not true and say we are in a larger corrective count, then where do we go? So this is one of my bullish count scenarios, right? So let's turn this off and let's go to the other scenarios that we may have. Okay. So now we have this yellow count, which is the fourth wave did not end here. And in fact, we are still finishing out the fourth wave correction potentially. But let's just say the fourth wave is now done here, which means that, let me see here. What the heck happened? Oh, okay. You know what? Let me do this here. Let me make this a higher time frame. Okay, let's go back to the 3-day. Okay, so now this yellow count means that we might be finishing out this ABC correction. So remember in Elliot Waves, okay, I'm not going to go through the entire lesson in education of Elliot Waves. You guys could do that on your own. But in the fourth waves, right, wave 2 and wave 4 are corrective counts. And generally in the corrective counts, you will have an A, B, and a C style correction. So the fourth wave right now that we're potentially finishing off, this is called a running flat correction, which means that generally the fourth wave where it ends, the C wave right here should be higher than this A wave correction. Okay, so in my opinion, this should be really the end of the count. And now we should be beginning a new 5 wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth should be ending up here. Okay, that's another possibility. Running flats in bull markets look like this. See this count right here? Hopefully y'all could see this better. Let me see. Let me see if I can zoom into this thing. Okay. So this one right here, I believe, is what we may be finishing up, right? So we had the B wave, which was this one right here, and now we're finishing off the C wave right there, okay? And that's that running flat. And within the C wave also, you have a 5 wave down structure. Now, this is where things get tricky because Bitcoin is such a choppy, overlapping asset that it gives you confusing counts. So if this is the C wave on the way down and we finish the 4 right here, can we get a proper, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves here? Maybe. Okay, this is where things get tricky. It depends how you draw that count. If you draw it like 1, 2, maybe this is a 3 and this is a 4, then where's the fifth? Because that's what I'm confused about. There is no fifth on the way down. Okay. Now that is the crux of the problem that I'm kind of facing with Elliott Wave counts right now, is that I don't see a clean 5 in this potential ABC scenario with that 5 wave structure down. But I'm sure in some way you can force it to come where you can say 1, 2, maybe this is a 3, maybe this is a quick 4, and this is a 5, and we're done, right? Maybe this is it. That's 5 waves down. We're starting a new bull market and BTC is going to hit 100K. That's possible. I don't really think that's the case right now. And I'll tell you all why. Okay. In my thread that I highlighted right here, it has a larger overview of what's happening in the world. And I think that this overview of how I see markets playing out from the world stage is going to be applicable to the technical analysis that I'm doing right now. And what I mean by that is there's 2 things that I talk about in this thread, which are the large time frame cycle and the small time frame cycle. The small time frame cycle, in my opinion, we have a lot of bad news, but I think the market has been aggressively sold off in this area. And I think that bad news is pretty much baked in. Okay. I think from here, we're going to probably rally up. I don't think we're going to start a new bull market, at least not in the next several months, but I do think we're bound for a rally up, okay, in this particular area, the way we're consolidating like this. And that rally up is a small time frame, okay, adjustment, because what we're really doing is in the small time frame cycle, we have a whole lot of bad news, okay, so we've accepted that bad news. But now that bad news is kind of fading and going into the background, and we actually have, say, good news or seemingly good news, which is coming out, which is, okay, it looks like we got the FOMC rate hike out of the way. We got Russia and Ukraine to the table to talk about peace talks and ceasefire. In my opinion, all that is good news, okay? Maybe the Fed is going to start to work on inflation a little bit more, right? These are potentially neutral to good news points. And this, to me, is acceptable for a rally on the way up. But in the larger time frame cycle, I don't believe that we've resolved inflation clearly. We have a slowing economy. More than likely, we may head into recession later this year or maybe next year. We still have a potential of a war outbreak in Russia and Ukraine. obviously there's a lot of things in terms of inflation, in terms of global GDP slowing down. That is a large time frame, bearish sentiment. And so you have the counter between the small time frame cycle and the large time frame cycle. So in the smaller time frame cycle, we are due for a rally, in my opinion. And I think the probabilities are pretty high for that. Okay. How high we rally, like I said, I don't quite know. I personally think we can get as high as 52, 54,000, and then still maybe start trending back down. Okay. So how does that relate to us in terms of counts? So if this is the C wave, right, we may have a big up move coming. Do I think that's likely? Probably not. So let's go to my other Elliott Wave count, which I personally think might also be potentially coming true. Okay. And that is this one right here. All right. So what we now have is a larger correction, which is this fourth wave is a deep, deep correction. All right. And you'll see a lot of overlap in these counts right here. But let me make your life easier and let's do this. Okay, let's do this and let's do this. So now what we have is a C wave correction that we're still going through. And these are called expanded flat corrections. So earlier I showed y'all running flats. Now we're in a expanded flat correction. Now expanded flats are still, part of a bull market, right? As you can see at the end of the C wave, we then rally higher. So even from here, from this standpoint, guess what? At some point, that fifth wave, I expect upside for BTC. Okay, but this is going to be a long, drawn out correction. So what you have in this context is A wave that finished in June and July last year, B wave right here, which finished in November 2021, and the C wave we're still going through. Because what you have now is a 5-wave correction, which I believe sits properly in this corrective count. In this B to C wave down here, you have to have 5 waves down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I still believe we might be going through that fifth. Okay, where that fifth ends, I am really, really not sure. I have some inclination, which is if you look at the weekly chart, right? You guys know very well, we've talked about the 200 weekly moving average for the last several years. And that has been historically pretty darn, supportive of price back from 2015. So if we have a larger drawn out correction, okay, headed into the 200 weekly moving average, that takes price between $26,000 to $25,000. That's not totally unreasonable, right? So going back to that 3-day chart, okay, if we go back to that 200-day moving average, then that means that we are still within the context of this 5-wave corrective move down. But that would mean that my theory of this breaking up temporarily is wrong. And that from here, we would start breaking down aggressively. Now, that is something that I have a hard time contending with because I believe we are really, really oversold. And in my opinion, I think the easier path is temporarily on the way up. Now, Bitcoin being the tricky asset that it is, it tends to fake out a lot of people in the most, sinister ways possible. So I do actually think that we are in a complex count of something like this, where we are going to break up maybe to 50, 54, 55, and then start to break back down in some sort of crazy event that may happen later this year. Whether it's an overall market-wide crash or more exacerbation on the Russia and Ukraine front, I don't quite know. But this kind of move, right, is still plausible right here. Okay, that's what I'm concerned about right now. And that's why I'm trying to map out all these scenarios so we're prepared. Now, the problem with preparation, or rather over preparation, is you fail to see what's happening in near term and how the markets are telling you that, okay, the probabilities are, yeah, we may go down, but near term, the probabilities are lining up that there's way too much fear baked into the market. And even if we do go down, those probabilities are lesser right now, rather than trending up first and then down, okay? So this count right here, though it may be true, I think the probabilities are quite low. And so I believe what we may be able to do here is we could say, okay, maybe we finished our C wave right there, right? But maybe we have, I don't know, still a fourth wave correction down. So let's just say we might have, I don't know, a C wave down here. However, we still might be in a large correction. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? This could be like a sort of broken Elliott wave count. And then the C is like this over the next, month or two. Okay, that might finish off that C wave. That's what I'm really, really taking into account is how can the market sort of squeeze up higher from here and then decide if it wants to break down from here or start a new bull market. Okay, I think that's the highest likelihood scenario. Is that pretty clear so far? I know Elliott Wave can be tricky and it's very subjective. This is why I don't really use it that often, but I just wanted to show y'all, what are the different scenarios that we could be dealing with. I think it's much easier right now to just say, hey, this is a C wave, right? Ending right there as a running flat. We're done with the 4. And now we begin the ascent to our, 5 wave move up into $100,000. I just don't think the environment around us or the markets themselves are prepared for a massive move like this. I don't think the environment is conducive for asset markets to push up that high. So I think the odds are greatly stacked against us to start a new massive bull run just yet. Okay. Now, I think if you want to simplify from a SR perspective, I think you can kind of look at this at, in a very simple manner. Okay. Somewhere up here is actually the yearly open. I think it's $46,200 on FTX and Bitfinex. So let's just say, somewhere right there. Okay. Just above these highs. And then down here, this is where you kind of got, a whole lot of sort of support, right? So this is your support zone, and this is your resistance zone. Okay, so we're going to mark this out, right? I think it's as simple as that right now. We are traversing between a pretty large range of resistance, which is multiple times capping price around 45 to 46K. And price being supported right here around 35 to 33K, even since, maybe last year. Whatever happens out of this area, whether we break up from here, we should see a relatively expansive move to the upside. So this can target 50, 54,000. Like I said, if that fails and we start breaking back down in here, that's probably not good. Okay. But if we start breaking up from here with good volume, we break through 55, 56K, then I don't see any reason why we cannot get all the way to 70K, which was, pretty close to the previous all-time high in November 2021. If we start rolling over from here, or we start rejecting this area and start breaking down back towards support, then I'm concerned. Okay, then that means that my overall theory of us heading up for the next couple of weeks is probably wrong. And the spot positioning, the long positioning bias that I have in the market, I need to start letting that go, because that will be quite risky holding on the way down. Okay. But for now, as I've told Advantage members, I am spot long in the market. I am not concerned right now, because a majority of that concern to me was already baked in this area when we were aggressively chopping and altcoins were aggressively dropping, right? Now it's like, okay, well, all that stuff is behind us. FOMC is behind us. Russia and Ukraine are coming to the table. Unless like Russia is about to drop a nuke next week, I mean, we're all screwed anyway, right? Like, what good is money going to do for, a nuclear war event? All markets are going to tank anyway. Okay. So in that event, like, I'm not even going to think about that because it's too depressing to think about. But as long as markets are alive and things are going at a relatively cordial and civil pace in war talks, Fed and FOMC have a pretty detailed plan for the next 1 year of hiking interest rates at a incremental pace. I think all things are laid out for us in terms of a methodical, anticipated plan. And markets like certainty, markets like to know what's anticipated. Markets do not like uncertainty. They do not like, things coming out of left field. And I believe right now we are in a point of market certainty that A lot of fear has been baked into the market. And I think the easiest path is on the way up. So aside from BTC looking like this and the numerous counts that I've drawn, the other asset that I believe we need to be definitely paying attention to is Ethereum. Ethereum is going through its merge process, which I've talked about before. It had its first successful transaction on layer 0 between Ethereum and Phantom, Ethereum and Matic, Ethereum and Avalanche. I think that's a phenomenal, feat accomplished for Ethereum. So I think ETH, okay, in ETH, this is the trend line that has been capping price. In my opinion, I think ETH can easily get to $3,100, $3,200, but from here, similar to BTC, which has been capped around 46, ETH needs to get above $3,100, $3,200. If it can do that, then I see no reason why I cannot get up to $3,500 to $3,800 way the heck up here, okay? And that is, in my opinion, analogous to BTC getting to about 50, 55K or so. All right, so Ethereum is at the top of my bucket list as potential longing opportunities. I honestly think that if you're thinking about leverage longing, assets that are slightly easier to leverage long right now is probably BTC and ETH. I think AVAX is probably another good asset. I think Rune has probably got significant momentum. I think Rune is probably topped near term just because it's had such an aggressive move. I think Solana is probably due for more upside, like 100, 120, maybe as high as like 145, 150. Near is probably also, doing something like a ABCDE style count. It's a bullish count, so it kind of looks like this. Okay, so what you have is A, B, C, D. I think there's probably an E finishing out right here. So this is your bullish triangle count, and it kind of looks like this, and then you start seeing a big breakout. And if the breakout is going to happen, right? Let's just say this triangle count is correct on near. Well, I think at minimum, we're going to get to $14 to $15 and possibly maybe as high as $17 to $18. Okay. The other caveat that I have outlined in my thread right here is recognizing which assets are going to trend up, higher, and what could be the next big narrative that's going to likely play out. And I've highlighted this, in a general sense right here. I think Solana, Luna, Avalanche, maybe even IBC plays like Atom, Cosmos, Osmosis, Juno, Ren Protocol. I think those are big plays that we definitely need to be paying attention to, okay? DeFi 3.0, you could talk about, Ribbon Finance, Maple Finance. You could talk about, layer 0 stuff or ZK rollups. Matic is probably part of it. I think Elizabeth had made a nice list here of assets that she's watching. Let me see here. I forgot where she made that list, but it was posted somewhere in here. Y'all can look it up, right? So the point is, these are the narratives that I'm kind of paying attention to. And I think NFT tokens are also going to be big, in my opinion. But I wouldn't say all tokens. I think a lot of them you're going to see as cash grabs. As I mentioned before, I actually think that Ape near term is also going to be an asset that you may want to consider shorting, not investment advice. But if you believe that some of these tokens don't have good tokenomics, they have a lot of whales who are going to continuously dump their tokens on the market. If that is a thesis that you believe in, then Ape should be a token that should very well be on its way down back towards single digit or less than $5 or $3 or something like that. I'm not quite sure. That's why I'm not really taking a trade. I'm just outlining my thesis on the market. But what I do believe is you don't want to ignore NFT tokens, okay? Because I think a lot of value will definitely accrue in that area. And I'm not dumb enough to just look at Ape token and just say, all right, well, no matter what, this is going to go to zero. I really don't know. What I do know, however, is that over the last several months, NFTs have become the hot area for scams, for whales dumping on retail, for a lot of these token drops happening, which pretty much are pointless or really become worthless for retail to hang on to. And if that trend continues, right, then I don't see any reason why Ape itself, the token, I don't see why that can't go down either. Okay, please do your own research. All right. Can I check out Spell? Yes, Spell was part of the Phantom ecosystem, so was Solidly. I mean, it's gone down a lot, and I think this is the other thing that I want to talk about is, what's going to happen similar to last year in June and July is people who wanted to make a ton of money and they didn't in this particular area. Once the market dropped, what people are going to look for is like, what's the next 5x, 10x, 50x, or 100x, right? And the overwhelming majority of time, people will fall into the asset that has gone down the most, and that's probably the cheapest. So I want you guys to be careful with Spell, Doge token, and Shiba, and all this crap that people are going to be talking about, because it's going to start hitting your radar, and you're going to get excited, and you're going to feel like, oh man, this thing can go up. If it goes back to the previous all-time high, Spell can go up 500%. And that's like the logic of thinking that most retail falls into, because when they see an asset that's down 80 or 90%, they immediately think, oh, well, that's definitely a buy. Because if it goes back to the previous all-time high, then, I make a good 4x or 5x or 10x. But I think the logic here is actually wrong, because I think it's wrong because what we're really failing to see is these assets are down significantly for a reason. Remember, two of the biggest developers actually left the Phantom network. Phantom itself lost about $4 billion in TVL basically within a week. Phantom prices are down also, 50, 70% from the highs. A majority of the network and user activity is rolling away from Phantom and into other networks. Rune, Luna, AVAX, let me see, even Near, right? One Harmony is actually moving into AVAX. So the point is that you need to focus on the fundamentals of some of these assets and start to understand, first of all, what asset looks good structurally versus Spell. So in my opinion, I think, Solana probably looks better than Spell, or Atom looks better than Spell. AVAX definitely looks better than Spell, the way it looks right here. Luna looks better than Spell. You want to focus on the assets that actually have a nice uptrend intact already, rather than hoping that, you're hoping for the lotto ticket. And I think someone asked me about like Oxy or some other, small Dogecoin type tokens. And if you really want easier trades, focus on where the money is going. Focus on the assets that already look like they're trending up, because it will make your life easier, right? Instead of hoping that Spell and these small tokens, even Step Finance, for example, right? Someone asked me about Step the other day. It's down like 90, 95%. Yeah, it could head up, but you're now hoping like an asset that's been down 90, 95% somehow just randomly turns it around and it's going to go for a new bull market or something. It's possible, but maybe your money and time is better spent in assets that already look good, assets that are looking stronger right now, that have user activity. Okay. Remember, like each cycle of crypto, I mentioned this right here, it's starting to get thinner and thinner. If you believe the crypto market is maturing, okay, which I believe it is, you're not going to see a market-wide movement in everything going up at all times. You're going to see thinner and thinner asset movements. For example, I mentioned right here in the first cycle of BTC going up to 65K, everything got to enjoy a very nice bid. All altcoins saw massive movements up. NFTs, DEXs, Metaverse, GameFi, etc. Everything went up last year, okay? First half of last year. Second half of last year was a little bit tougher. We saw that BTC went to 65, 69K, and then we saw a thinner movement in the market, right? By the time November ended, we saw a handful of assets rip up. Majority of assets were still in a downtrend. A perfect example is Sushi, right? Sushi has been basically in a downtrend since March of 2021. So the fact of the matter is, if you believe the market is maturing, then you need to position yourself accordingly and start to recognize what are the new narratives and thesis developing. Like I said, I outlined what I think is developing right here. Make your own life easier to recognize what the market is doing already, rather than hoping and thinking that, you know what, I don't think, AVAX is going to go up much higher. And you then want to bet on like some Oxy token or Atlas, or, some crappy Solana ecosystem token, or Spell, or whatever, right? Just focus on where the strength is, make your life easier on yourself. Okay. Is that understood? Are there any questions so far? Anything else I can cover? Market is really choppy, especially in BTC. On the hourly time frame and stuff, I would probably say that, I think I outlined this yesterday. Let me see here. Just going to the small time frame and just finishing this up. Yeah, I think BTC is probably, just going to chop around this area. The fact that it's sort of rejecting the lower end of this range right here is telling me that this thing wants to drop further. And the next stop is 40,000 flat. And then after that, 39,400. Okay. Ideally, you do not want to break 39.4, because then it gets really ugly. And then we're going to spill over all the way to 37. And 37 is okay, because I would love for liquidity to get swept here and here and here. These are stops that were just left behind and they were not taken. So that would be phenomenal if we sweep this, but it changes, a whole lot of positioning for everything if markets do drop all the way down here. So ideally, I do not want that to happen. What I want to happen is maybe BTC, I don't know, gets to 40K, maybe a wick to 39.4, and then starts trading back up. Okay, that's my optimistic scenario. All right. All right, thanks everybody for joining. That's all I got. I think I covered a lot in the market. Okay, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. Take care. I will keep Advantage members updated in the private Discord channels. Y'all take care. Good luck. Okay, cheers.